Welcome to my channel, everyone. Bitcoin is currently trading at $116,580. In this video, we are going to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Solana, and it's not looking good. Actually, it's looking very bearish to me at the moment. So let's just start with the trading performance. So this month was a bit better, so we can look first into August. So last month you can see many red days, so we tried several times to get some profitable trades. Like I said, we always try to lose $100 to $200 daily, but once we are in profits, then we are going to scale up and try to hit those kind of numbers. If we now look into September, and you can see the September is looking much more better. So here we got some nice, I would even say, jackpots. So this was pretty good. I have also communicated with you my short positions. I have also communicated with you that slowly taking profits. We can go for that into the community posts, so they are very valuable, so don't miss them out. So basically, short trades are good right now. We developed since yesterday bigger bearish chart patterns. We got into the first support areas and targets of some coins. Some are still midway. My overall opinion, if I have short positions, I would keep them. If I don't have short positions, I wouldn't open any now. This was when we were, you might not see it because of the price mark, but this was in this market stage right here. So back here, that's because the market moves too fast. We can see a bounce, or we can continue getting in one way lower prices. My current positions, if I see a nice bounce, which is a retest, then I will increase my position size. If we push more in one go down, then I will take some profits and reinvest later. The second option happened. If we push more in one go down, then I will take some profits and reinvest later. We didn't see that for Bitcoin, but we have seen it for the altcoins, that we pushed more and more to the downside. So Bitcoin was stronger. This was also based on the Bitcoin dominance, which we will also talk about. So the analysis of Bitcoin aren't that perfect. The altcoins were pretty good, in my opinion. Very precise. For Bitcoin, we are still bearish. I have said that the target was here $117,800 from the old inverted head and shoulders formatation. This one right here. And it seems to me that we can still get into that target, even though I have said that we most likely invalidated it with this rising wedge, which broke to the downside, got its retest. Then we got another rising wedge within a rectangle. We broke the rising wedge to the downside, but we didn't first break the rectangle to the downside. Still, here we broke it to the downside. Still didn't break more to the downside. So basically, the Bitcoin analysis aren't that good at the moment, which isn't a big issue in my opinion, because we have to look into our overall market performance. So I can take those kind of chart patterns out of the chart. And now I would even say, if we break the $116,680 to the upside, then we can get into $117,800. Once that breaks to the upside, then Bitcoin is a bit more bullish, and we might see the $120,000 for Bitcoin. What I still think is that even if we break to the upside, it's not 100% sure yet. We didn't break to the upside yet. We can also get rejected and sell off. But once we break it to the upside, then I would actually be careful for Bitcoin once we get into that area, that we are not going to get a huge sell-off, maybe even tomorrow, once the Fed is decreasing the rates by 0.25%. I can still imagine a new bullish cycle. So all of my bearish chart patterns, in my opinion, are going to get invalidated once we get a 0.5% rate cut, which is most likely not the forecast, but we never know. So basically $114,388. If they break to the downside, then we have two targets directing us into a similar area, $112,132 with a small stop at $113,480, because there is support and there I expect a small bounce. So basically, once we break this to the downside and we get to 13,480, then I can expect a bounce, which can also be a retest afterwards, and then the sell-off into those two price marks. This is just a smaller move to the downside. Yeah, for sure, if we take it from the current price level, then it's still a bigger price movement, but we are still waiting for this kind of price movement where we are going to see Bitcoin at round about 100,000 US dollar. This is just for now speculation. We don't have huge bearish chart patterns which are directing us into that area. For the altcoins, we have those patterns. So if we now look into the Bitcoin dominance, then we can see this here was our old bear flag. It broke to the downside. Yeah, we got into the target. Then we saw the bounce. The bounce is not the best one, means we still have the chance. Since this also looks very corrective to me, even though we can get a slightly higher high, then the rising wedge is going to change a bit. Then a pullback. But what I don't like for the Bitcoin dominance, so I'm basically bullish for the Bitcoin dominance, is that we first have to go into the 8-hour chart where we broke out of this falling wedge in orange. And if we now look into the smaller time frame, then we are back in the old bear flag. So basically that rising wedge which I have drew here can easily get invalidated, but this rising wedge which I have also drew here can change. So this rising wedge is less bearish than the one which we have. Why? Because we are always going to take the spread of the rising wedge and then we put it to the breakout point, and over the time it's going to move to the upside. I can also imagine that this rising wedge is not going to work in its maximum extension. So basically we are just going to get a small sell-off in the Bitcoin dominance, for example this one, put it here to the breakout point. This can be just a small sell-off and from there continue getting a higher Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin should completely outperform the altcoins. If Bitcoin now drops by, for example, 1%, the altcoins can easily drop depending on their cap size for sure, because Ethereum is not going to drop the same amount as Kaspa, but you can expect 2 to 4% sell-off for each percentage with Bitcoin is going to the downside. So I would be a bit careful with longing altcoins right now. We also see the overall crypto market is not looking positive. We can see it in the USDT dominance. So if we look into the USDT dominance, we broke out of a huge falling wedge, which you can see here in orange. This one right here. So we broke it to the upside. We got our retest. Let's move into the 1 hour time frame. This here also reminds me of an cup and handle formatation, so a bullish chart pattern at the bottom. This what we get right now, this market stage here. This looks also to me like a bullish consolidation. So basically we got this kind of pump and then we are consolidating with lower prices to fill some fair value gaps. That's what I think afterwards. And this would be a huge sell-off for the coins in general. Why that? Because the USDT dominance is showing us how strong USDT is. If USDT is strong, that means that people swap their coins into USDT. So basically, overall, the whole market situation is not looking good. I have also done another community post 1 hour ago where I said my opinion, best risk to reward ratio to increase shorts now. Still keep in mind that we can get higher prices for the cryptos. That's why I keep my leverage low. Some coins like Ethereum, Dogecoin, Tau have fair value gaps above. About Ethereum we are going to talk in this update. Dogecoin and Tau are in the next videos. So they can still go, oh, that's a typo. So they can still get a bigger movement to the upside than the other coins. So if we now look into Ethereum, then we can see we had our bull flag, We have also said, or falling wedge, if it breaks to the upside, yes, we can also get into the top area. We can also get into that fair value gap. Didn't happen, was just a fake out move, and schwupps, we are down. And we got lower lows. What I can still expect for Ethereum is, let's see if we have a bullish divergence. Not yet. We can still build up a bullish divergence, getting a slightly lower low, and from here get into the fair value gap. Afterwards, sell off. This is one scenario. Then we would build in the RSI a bullish divergence, so basically a higher low to the previous one, but we have on the chart a lower low, bullish divergence. This bullish divergence can be used to fill the fair value gap. I will give you now the numbers. So the fair value gap reaches prices up to $4,620 US, but here's something interesting. I would even say that's the resistance which I think we are going to get. $4,581 US. From there, we should sell off. So basically, we can ignore those kind of fair value gaps here. We don't have to close them. Yeah, we never have to close fair value gaps. We can look into the past. You can see down below here. Here are many fair value gaps which didn't get closed yet. So just because we have a fair value gap, it doesn't mean that we have to fill it. This also is for this fair value gap. We don't have to fill it. We can also sell off more right now and fill it in the next month or in the next bull market. Who knows? I still took my Ethereum short position here. We have also done short trades before, but I still decided to take another trade for Ethereum about here and not waiting for the fair value gap. If we still get into the $4,581 US, then I would increase my position size for Ethereum a bit more. But in the end of the day, like I said, we don't have to fill fair value gaps. All the other altcoins, beside Tau and Dogecoin, filled fair value gaps to the upside. So basically the other 9 coins are already done or at resistance. So the chance is there that Ethereum is one of the only coins which can still do a higher high to this one right here. Why the other altcoins are not doing this? Because the other altcoins already did it, or it sells off directly. And for this case that we can still sell off directly, I already took my short positions. Like I said, it's always low leverage because this price movement here doesn't depend on a chart pattern. If we have a chart pattern where we have a direct price target, then I can go in with far more leverage. We just have bigger chart patterns from the past. Let me take out the RSI now. What I have drew here was an old rising wedge which broke to the downside. We got one retest point and now we got another high point. The issue is we didn't invalidate this rising wedge. So we are just saying we are not that bearish anymore since we got this kind of price movement. We are less bearish. Less bearish means before the target was 3.2k in the maximum extension for Ethereum. Now it's 3.5k. Also mid-range target $3,786 US. I think this is kind of realistic before we see another push for Ethereum. So basically I would look for those kind of scenarios and we have to see what is going to happen. I still think that we have support at $4,258, the red trend line here. Once we are going to lose this support to the downside, next target $4,102 US to $3,980 US. If we also are going to lose it, then those two targets should get hit with a very high chance, in my opinion. If we now look over XRP, the price movement which we got to the downside, we predicted it pretty good. We have set here, head and shoulders formatation, broke to the downside. $3.08 was the price mark. Then we have also set $2 $2.97 is going to be the target in its maximum length. So basically here, the whole head, if we work off the whole head. Then I have also did a community post yesterday that this here is also an head and shoulders formatation. No, basically not. I didn't do a community post of that head and shoulders formatation, but I've also said that we built up new chart patterns, new bearish chart patterns, and we can get into the targets. And we are close to get into the first targets. This was, I think, somewhere here. I had a second target on the chart, which was the $2.95. And once we got there, I took profits for my short trades because all of the other coins also went into support, and I expected this bounce to happen. For now, we worked off the length of one shoulder. What if we are going to work off the length of the whole head, of the bigger head and shoulders formatation? So we got one small head and shoulders formatation, and here a bigger head and shoulders formatation. The bigger chart pattern is more bearish. Then we take the length of the whole head, put it to the highest point, target $2.90. Once we break the $2.90 to the downside, well, $2.66, most likely next target. Afterwards, we have to see if we are going to drop into $2.50 or even far more to the downside. We have to see if we are going to form chart patterns. What we can also say is we have another head and shoulders formatation. Left shoulder, head, and here the right shoulder can develop. So basically, the price movement which we have right now doesn't look bullish to me. So basically this kind of movement here looks to me like a rising wedge. What I see right now is, I'm not sure why didn't I see it before? It also looks a bit like a bear flag to me. Let's try it out. Aha, so basically here is a bear flag. If the right shoulder of an head and shoulders formatation develops as a bearish chart pattern, we have on the smaller time frame, this one right here, already a bearish chart pattern, rising wedge in bright blue. Once it breaks to the downside, we can see the lower part of the bear flag maybe get a bounce because this is support. Afterwards, sell off. And then I think we should see the maximum length of the head and shoulders formatation. What can also happen is, if we are even far more bearish. Yeah, I have many chart patterns on the chart. Trust me on that. For Tau, we also have 5 ongoing chart patterns. We developed so much. So basically, what if we work off the whole length of the first sell-off, formed a bear flag, breaking it to the downside, and then see the $2.75. So basically with that we have our first chart pattern. Once we break the $2.90 to the downside, the only thing which we had so far were the $2.66, which were also a target of an old rectangle. And you know rectangles are unique, so basically if they break to the upside, they get to the target to the upside, they can also get more to the upside. So basically the target here was probably somewhere here. Yeah, we can still get more up, but the target down below here is still ongoing. Now we have, I don't know why I didn't see that before, another target, $2.75, once we break the bear flag to the downside. And the bear flag is going to break to the downside at the price level of $2.98. And I think that here is a huge potential to do a very short-term, high leverage trade. Like I said before, XRP is short to me, but once the $3.2 breaks to the downside, I can increase my position size. Once the $2.98 breaks to the downside, I can increase my position size. Once the $2.96 breaks to the downside, I can increase my position size. $2.90, take profit to de-risk. Once they also break to the downside, get back into the market for the whole movement to the downside. So here is a trade where I can say, look into my performance. I always keep a low amount of money in my futures account. Yeah, I didn't cash out yet. You can still see it. Yeah, 6.6k. Those 5.5k, they're on the spot side. Why that? Because I don't have any kind of interesting stocks where I think this is a must buy. So basically, as long as I don't find any kind of stocks which are interesting to buy, I will keep that money into that account. But here you can see it. Those kinds of trades, those kind of profits are just possible if we have coins which have this kind of setup where we break multiple times in a row to the downside, where we double up our position size. Why that? Because if I jump into an XRP short trade, for example right here, and I keep it small, let's imagine this chart pattern gets invalidated. Then I lose maybe $50, $100. So basically we have to take the loss. This happens also quite often, so minus 177. Yeah, we tried it. Here, minus $70. We tried it. If we go into the past month, here we tried many times to get some profitable trades, but they went into stop losses because chart patterns can also get invalidated. Yeah, don't look just because our chart patterns are working since 2 days, 3 days, 3 months. Who cares? There are also times where they get invalidated, for example, for Bitcoin. Yeah, we also had chart patterns for Bitcoin. They didn't work out how we wanted it to be. Can happen. Then I have a stop loss and I take the loss. But once I see, and this is also what I want to tell you guys, you don't have to be rich. You don't have to put all of your savings into trading because trading is very risky. You can also start with a small amount of money. And like I showed you, I keep for now 1k on the account, but I'm also thinking about risking a bit more, like $500, $200 more. $500 to $1,000 more into that account. So I'm trading with higher leverage then, means with a higher amount of money to make more money. But then I'm risking also more. And with this setup, you can jump into trades even if you have $100 in your futures account. Then you just bet, for example, $20 into XRP. With a leverage for sure, you put, for example, a 10x leverage. Then $3 breaks to the downside. You double up your position size. Then $2.96 breaks to the downside. You double up again. And then you have a huge profitable trade where you can get high leveraged. Yeah, I had one day it 200x on my whole portfolio and I was safe. A 200x leverage on my whole portfolio. If I start with a 200x leverage on my whole portfolio, then I get liquidated with a very high chance. If I start slowly, for example with a 10x leverage, and I see multiple times breakouts to the downside, I'm already in profits and I can double up and the profits are going to gain more and more and more. And I keep doubling up. Sooner or later, I had a position size, like I said, I keep 1k on my account. I had a position size of 250,000. So it is possible to trade with a low amount of money, get into high leverage trades without risking your initial capital. But for that, we need to get this set up. So I talked about a lot of that. Also, we can invalidate this chart pattern before it gets activated. So a push over here would be not the preferred scenario right now, but we still have to keep it in mind. Just because we have right now a bear flag, it doesn't mean that this bear flag is going to last long. It can also get invalidated. Since we have a fair value gap up to $3.08, if we get just a wick and sell off immediately from there back into the bear flag, then I would still say the bear flag is ongoing. So let's see what is going to happen. My preferred scenario is a huge sell-off. So what about Solana? For Solana, we have set 243 US dollars. If they break to the downside, then we should see the price area between $231.50 to 227 US dollar. We can also sell off a bit more to 225 US dollar. So far, first push here, got into the fair value gap, and now we are building up another bear flag. At least it looks like a bear flag to me. I took the sell-off right here. I take it to the breakout point. So the bear flag can also develop a bit differently depending on what we should see to the upside. But in the end of the day, if we are not going to see something which is going to invalidate this bear flag completely, so this would also still be the bear flag. As long as we don't see something which invalidates it, this is the maximum, I would say. For example, this kind of movement. I will give you here the price mark, which is currently the $241.65. If they break to the upside sustainable, then this bear flag is gone from the chart. But as long as we don't get it and we break to the downside, $231.80. First target, 224 US dollar and 45 cents. Afterwards, $213. And the green trend line, which you can see, is on the 4-hour chart, where we connected all the tops with each other. This is going to be a support trend line, but we also have to keep in mind if we lose support, then it's going to get resistance in the future, and then we should sell off a lot, in my opinion, 213 US dollar. Afterwards, 195 US dollar. If we are also going to lose it, well, we have to see if we are not going to see Solana somewhere down below here. If this is going to happen, it's going to be very good to get some long positions. Buy the dip is, in my opinion, not working, because if you want to buy the dip, what is your dip? Is your dip 5%? Is your dip 10%? Because from up here to down here, we can say 42%. If you always buy at minus 10%, then you think that you buy the dip 4 times. This is not the case. If we are selling off from here 10%, then you bought here your first dip. Then we sell off another 10% from here. This is not anymore the same length. So right here into the next box, 2 times, 3 times already, and another 10%, 4 times, and here 5 times. So you think it's 4 times, but you need to buy 5 times. Buying the dip with what? The dip is not worth it if you already have $10,000 in Solana and you see a 10% dip. How much do you want to put into Solana? $500? It's not going to be that much of a difference for your average price, so you always have to double up. So if you want to double up on the way down, buying the dip, then you have, if you want to buy at every 10% steps to the downside, you have to put 5 times more money. So basically, at a certain point, if you do it with just Solana, then it might work. But if you start with a high amount of money for all of the altcoins which you like, 40, 50 altcoins, and you have to double up them always, in the future you might need $1 million just to lower your average price. It's not going to work like this. And most people are buying dips like this, for example. They think this is here the dip which I want to buy because we are going to get Solana at 1K. In my opinion, this is not smart. The dip which I actually want to buy is, I would give Solana a bit more time, even though I have to wait a couple of months. This area down below here, there I'm looking for long positions which I want to hold for a longer time. And this is a dip. For sure, now we can say it. This was the up movement. This was the dip. What we got right here was not the dip. What we got right here was not the dip. This here was the dip. We can just say it afterwards. Same here. Push to the upside. Here, people thought this is the dip. No, the dip was down below here. So I would say being a bit more patient gets us more verification where the price is going to go. So here is the chart pattern. which directs us into $213 once it breaks to the downside. If we see more chart patterns and we can identify lower lows, then I will also give you that. And at one point, we are going to form bullish chart patterns, and we are also going to break it to the upside. So just imagine, we are getting down. Then let's just say we form another bear flag, break it to the downside. Then we form an head and shoulders formatation, break it also to the downside. And the way how we break it to the downside is going to get interesting afterwards, because at a certain point we are going to form a chart pattern which is, for example, a falling wedge. So we had a couple of bearish chart patterns in a row, and then we get one bearish chart pattern. If that breaks to the upside, that's the end of the sell-off, most likely. So in theory, it sounds good. Getting it into the reality is a bit more difficult, and also costs a lot of patience, and also the level of greed. Like, I know people want to buy cryptos because they think it's going to skyrocket, but in every single altcoin season we have seen price drops of 30 to 70% within 1 week. This is the real altcoin season. Yeah, it's not just pumping to the upside. There are also corrections. It's just getting much more faster. Within a few days, you see a 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% correction to the downside, which is healthy, just to get a 300% afterwards push to the upside. So basically, before I'm bullish for the coins, I want to see a bullish chart pattern. Having a bullish chart pattern on the chart is not directly bullish. We also have to break it to the upside to activate it. So with that said, we see each other in the Sui Avalanche HBAR Dogecoin update. Afterwards, I will release the Render Tau, Kaspa and ONDO update.